Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to what may well be a massive CrowCast Tuesday Night Live this week. Tons of stuff to go through, not the least of which is our ongoing shitty form and shitty luck with injuries. Joining me tonight is our usual suspects, Donkey Magoo. How you going, Donk? Well, I'll just unmute you, mate, because I knew you'd be eating chips. How you going, Donkey? You arsehole.
Very well, mate, and good to be with you.
Very good. Macca, how you going, Mac?
Yeah, good, very good, thank you.
And, of course, Peter J. How you going, Peter?
Good, mate. How are you? And big hello to the Donk, too. Haven't had him on for a couple of weeks, so good to have him back.
It's great.
It took me about 14 years to drive back from Alice Springs.
How was the drive back, mate? Was it good?
It was fast. No, look, the Red Centre is actually a beautiful place, but and we a couple of nice little stops along the way. Got to see the Big Rock, which was lovely, and spent some quality time with a young family, which I haven't always had time to do. So if we do play up there again, more of you should make the trip up. And 1970s Crow took me out for a couple of beers at the golf club, which was a eye opener. And
that's my nephew. That's my nephew.
Is it really?
Oh, why do you reveal that, Macca? God.
Oh, game on.
No, it's a thorough disgrace.
Yeah. Yeah,
well, we've been keeping that quiet all these years, you know. Now you've just gone and, oh, mate.
Well, the dog came to the pub. He forgot that he gave the dog to the wife to take from the pub. Then he rang the wife to pick him up, and he forgot about that too. And then he came and picked him up. It was a round cracking all night, anyway.
Yeah, he's almost permanently pissed. That
explains a lot.
Welcome to the NT.
All right, well, look, we've got a massive show. I believe even Pete's got a bit of a leave pass to extend beyond the hour, which is probably going to be required tonight.
Very bizarre.
So let's get into news, shall we? Peter J.
Well, before I get into my stuff that I want to talk about tonight, probably just quickly wrap up some of the other things that are going on. The big news today was the acquisition of the baseball team. I guess the Adelaide Bite, and I did a bit of research on that and found that as of this season, they have a really unusual situation whereby they've got a Korean team that is being entered into the ABL competition, and they are going to be relocated to Geelong. So what they've done is that they've got this international sort of flavour to the competition, or international addition to the competition, without having to pay for all the travel that would entail. Seems like a pretty clever move to me, and obviously they get all the exposure from Korea, but play the team out of Geelong. I think that's probably what would have been interesting for the Crows, I'd imagine.
Yeah, financially, as my understanding is that they pay nothing to get the Adelaide Bite, but they will incur costs running it.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. And apparently the Korean team situation isn't that unusual. It's like a feeder club kind of situation that's been done in other leagues. But I don't know. Personally, the bigger news around that, I believe, is the establishment of an umbrella company, Adelaide Sports Inc., that is going to sit above the Bite and Legacy, and you would assume also the footy club. And given that there is a bit of a capital outlay and ongoing capital investment required to run the Bite, I just don't know. It's not as cut and dried as running an esports team on the smell of an oily rag. So, interesting.
Yeah, I think because they go into that setup where they're going to include the Bite, the esports, and the media department, I would imagine that the Bite has got some media costs, which we would provide out of already existing costs. So I think there's got to be some money saving there.
Can't see economies of scale there, can you, Pete?
No, look, the only thing that I could put my finger on was the international exposure and the fact that they've got an entree into a Korean audience. And mind you, I don't know how many times they play them each year, that particular team, but maybe looking to try and piggyback some sponsor dollars by that kind of exposure.
Mm. Interesting to see how that develops. Of course, we had some tribunal stuff going on today too, with a couple of tribunal hearings. Very handy out
for us on the weekend with Nat Fyfe losing his appeal. So I'm quite pleased. Not that I don't know if it cancels out our outs, but it's a massive out for Freo.
It pisses me off because I've had Charlie money on him since the beginning of the season. Bloody idiot.
He did deserve his game, though. I watched that game, and he had a very poor game. He was sort of tagged very much out the game, and he was a very frustrated individual. And when the incident happened, I just thought, I can't believe he did that. He had no reason at all to leap into the guy. The ball was well and truly passed. So he had very little defence at all, in my opinion, and I just think he took his frustrations out.
Yeah. Agree. He didn't turn to follow the ball when it went over his head. He just kept going straight for the man.
Correct.
So
left the ground. I think that was another.
Yeah, everything. It would have been a disaster if it had got off, particularly in light of what happened to Douglas earlier in the season.
I think it was very fair too, because the other lad, Simpkins from North Adelaide, from North Melbourne, sorry, he got 2 games at the originally, but that was overturned and he got cleared. So they're not just upholding that original decision just for the sake of it. So obviously, Fyfe was guilty.
Yeah, and Jack Darling looks to have avoided any sort of serious damage, just a hairline and some ligament, although it is high on the ankle, so not dissimilar to Mitch McGovern's injury in that regard, so I don't reckon we'll see him back too soon.
I actually hadn't caught up with that. What was the verdict about his ankle?
Just a hairline fracture and some ligament damage, so not the full broken ankle that they feared. So it's reasonable. He'd probably be back for finals, you'd think. Yeah,
possibly. I don't know. But it wouldn't. It's not a good one to have.
That's big for them too. He's had a pretty decent year, probably one of his better ones.
Oh, he's been starring. He's had an almighty start to the season.
Yeah. And of course, we got our injury news, haven't we, Pete?
It's just a disaster, mate. I mean, we've got we've now got Lynch and Rory Laird looking like they won't play. Hearing that Douglas will. The only, I guess, upside of that is that I saw a release of a publicity promo from the club today on Ben Davis and how well he's been going, and I wonder whether that may be a forerunner to him possibly getting a game, but certainly a very, very exciting player, and I would love to see them take a risk on Ben Davis.
Well, they've got to take a risk on someone. Sorry, go on.
And the Crouch surgery, mate, that went off through the week as predicted here. As predicted,
yep, last week. We were a couple of days early on that one, which was nice. Of course, they say that the surgery's been successful, which I take to mean that he didn't do an adductor or a hamstring getting off the gurney into the operating theatre. But confirmed out for the season. So that's another 12 months of poor old Brad's career down the toilet. And let's just hope whatever ladder he walked under sort of disintegrates or something, because we need him back, and the lad deserves to have a free run at it.
Yeah. I watched a few replays of some games at the end of the season to try and soothe my broken soul since the Alice trip, and one of them was the prelim final and a couple of those finals last year, and just watching him run around and just watching what team we actually had available sort of actually sent me into a further deeper hole. But just watching that's what could actually be happening right now. But just what he was able to do a lot of those times. And I think someone else put it on the board that, when he could rely on Matt Crouch and Brad Crouch for 30 touches in the game, then before you had to worry about anyone else, that was a really big relief to have out of your squad. So,
yeah, when you look at our injury list compared with other clubs, we've got 10 on the current injury list, of which 9 are automatic first 22 choices. And whereas most other clubs, it's, there's a mixture of perhaps first choices, maybes, and won't get a game. Whereas we just seem to get the good ones hurt. Even when they go to another club, we can still get them hurt.
According to Champion Data had the 4 most influential injuries currently in the AFL. We have 3 of them.
Yeah. Saw that. I put up a thing earlier on today, and it was basically out of our top 10 from the BNF last year, out of a possible 110 appearances by that top 10, we've had 68. So out of 110 games, they all could have played, 68 have happened.
Well, not only that, but of those 68 games, some of them have been played hampered. We had Sloaney hopping around, and we've had Tex sort of hampered. Matty Crouch has come back half-arse. We've had, various blokes come back and go out again. So, probably a net 60 or even 55 games in reality.
Yeah. Put it very bluntly, our season has been absolutely rooted by injury, but and it's very hard to blame the people that are out there playing the game when they're playing with not a half, 2/3 of a side. But you can, and I will, and I'm sure everybody else will too, blame the people that put us in that injury situation. Burton, House and Co. That they got a lot to answer for, the bastards.
Jeez, that's rough.
Well, I was talking to 5AA about it today, and I told him if I hear that bloody Burton bleat once more about the fact that that he was offended by what was said about his training performance, I said I'm a founding member, life member of the club, a member of the Crows, and I won't renew my membership next year if I hear that bastard bleat once more about his innocence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to wrap up the injury news, sorry, Pete, before we move on to good stuff. So, injury list, as per the AFC website, is Dougie, a test on his eye. The indications are that he will come up. I've had a scratched eye before. It's a bastard, so hopefully he comes up. Lairdy out of left field had a test on his hand. Apparently he's got some issues with his hand from last week. I think he's got a small fracture, but it's not displaced, so he may play with a guard if he does play. Lynchy, obviously, with a quote-unquote side strain, which looked to me more like ribs, is listed for a test, but doubtful. Tex is still a couple of weeks away. Sloaney's still a couple of weeks away. Riley Knight is the perennial 1 to 2 weeks away. Gov is 5 to 7. Geez. Paul Hunter is 8, and then we've got Smithers and Crouchy, obviously indefinite. Although the word from the Crows regarding Brodie Smith is hopeful, but you'd almost say put him out to pasture and bring him back next year. The way we're going at the moment.
Yeah, put him all to pasture. Let's tank. Let's get pick 6.
Yep.
Fiend, just moving along, mate. Now, it's not very often that we get stuff lob our way from the inner sanctum, but remarkably and coincidentally, we've had 2 big bombs lob to us individually over the last week, and I reckon maybe you go first because mine will lead into a bit more extensive discussion. So maybe we might lead off with you.
Yeah, sure. And you're right, Pete. We've been hammered. I'm just about to set up another email account called rumorsandgoss@aflcrowcast.com. Heard from a verified source today that there's some people, myself included, I must say, that have been questioning why Patrick Wilson hasn't been included in the Crows side of recent weeks, given his reasonable form and the team being decimated with injuries. Now, I've been advised, and I have to preface all of this with allegedly, and it's second-hand information, so we're not putting it up as fact. It's just what we've been told. But Patrick Wilson isn't on best terms with the club in terms of his I won't say behaviour, but some of the things that he's done before and after being listed by the Crows. I've been told, so again, I'm not stating this as fact, but I've been told that prior to the rookie draft, there was a fair amount of interest from Gold Coast on Paddy Wilson, and subsequent interest from the Adelaide Footy Club. I've been told that on rookie draft day, Patrick or someone connected to Patrick may have made contact with the Gold Coast Suns, alerting them to Adelaide's interest and urging them to take action with regards to their selections in the rookie draft. Adelaide subsequently picked Patrick up, unaware of any of this behind the scenes stuff going on. Have subsequently obviously found out that that's the case, and as a consequence severely reprimanded Patrick. Again, hearsay, allegedly, third-party information. Patrick hasn't been travelling terribly well in terms of his discipline within the club. He's been late to training sessions, particularly earlier on in the season. Late to training sessions, hasn't enamoured himself particularly well in regards to his work ethic. The source suggested that attitude of his may well have changed. Patrick may well have seen the error of his ways recently. But yeah, I guess, and we have to be so careful about what we say, and I'd stress again that this is just third-hand or second-hand information from someone who's deemed it appropriate to contact us with it. We can't and haven't tested the veracity of this information. It may well be a load of bullshit. But by the same token, it would explain or go part way to explaining why Patrick maybe hasn't forced his way into the side so far this season.
Where is he originally from? Is he originally from South Australia?
Sturt boy from a very good family. Doesn't has come up through the Sturt ranks. Local lad.
Strange.
So disappointing if true, and a bit concerning, obviously, not only for everyone, but for the club. If any of what happened preceding the rookie draft is true. As I said, there's no way that we can test the veracity of that information. But if true, it would go some way to making us or helping us understand the club's current attitude towards Patrick, and maybe explains why he hasn't been selected. It just, I guess it highlights, we've got issues. We've got a couple of players that we don't understand why they're not getting picked. I guess it just, if nothing else, it shows us that there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes at footy clubs, most of which we're not aware of. We're a podcast by the fans for the fans, so when we get information, couched in allegedly's, we're compelled to bring it to you guys.
Just on a very similar note, and I can't remember whether it was on Footy Classified or Talking Footy, but one of them was saying that there is a lot of unhappiness within the Adelaide camp as a result of that that pre-season camp that it was run. I think that was run by Collective Minds, wasn't it? And they had the Richmond theme song playing in their ear all night, and they couldn't go to sleep. All that.
Macca, that's an unintentional but fantastic segue to Peter's
you've been
news.
scooped.
I've been scooped.
But no, what I'm going to say,
no, Macca. Let's just let Pete run with that one.
We'll run with this. Thanks, Macca, for introducing me on that.
okay, you go for it.
Just want to clarify that I also had some stuff lobbed to me, and this is a source that I can't verify because I don't know who it is, but this is a person that contacts me from time to time. And all I can say is that if I pass over to Fiend will verify the fact that the stuff that comes from this particular source is almost without fail on the button. Over the years that I've been getting tidbits of information, I think we had in 2016 we called Jared Lyons going to the Suns in about July, August.
Yeah.
We had Brad Crouch's. We were able to release that prior to it happening. We were able to release confirmation of Mitch McGovern before he signed, and so we have had across the years a couple of nice little exclusives. When I do get stuff that lobs from this particular person, and we have our suspicions, we think it might be an ex-player, but we can't be sure. It's quite clear the information we get. This person, or certainly claims to be close to the playing group. So when we have stuff lobbed, we tend to try and we tend to go with it. So, but anyway, the stuff that lobbed with me, and I have to admit, it's not something that I've really tracked closely. And it does refer to the pre-season camp. Again, I do what Fiend did, and I cover this with all of this being secondhand information and allegations and the like. But the information that we had was that this was dramatically worse than what has been released and talked about in the media, that this was a really, really significantly damaging and bad outcome that occurred at the pre-season camp. Macca, as you rightly say, there was the 4 a.m. wake-ups with the Richmond Club song, but there was also very, very deep and personal examination of players and their lives, and attempt to get them to break down and setting players against each other. And there was a whole lot of stuff that went on, and the information is that it was so bad and so damaging that, as things stand, it's alleged that there are senior, really, really important players on our list who, as matters stand, don't want to be at the club and may well look to be traded out at the end of the year. Really, really, quite damaging stuff that went on. So, I put it out there for what it's worth, and I know that we've heard little ripples about this as the season has unfolded, and we've heard little ripples. And we had some information come our way a couple of weeks ago about some fractures down at West Lakes and some issues within the playing group, and I went back and checked, and this is very much on the agenda in terms of internal issues down there, and may well be transferred into what some of the performances that we're seeing. So,
do you want to actually read out what you got, Pete, just as a definitive? Is that
sure.
possible? Yeah.
Yep. So,
sorry to put you on the spot. I just think it's important that we put exactly what's on there.
Spoken to a few of the boys about the notorious camp. There's still a lot of anger, so much so that I would not be surprised to see some contracted players asking for trades. I'm talking big name, recently contracted players that are right now saying there's no chance of them being here next year. Their words, the camp was an unmitigated disaster. 4 a.m. wake up to the Tigers theme, facilitators trying to get them to cry by prying into deeply personal issues, pitting them against each other. It's true that some liked it, but the majority had massive issues and came back really angry.
Yeah. Now, I just want to cut in there and just play a snippet, and hopefully Triple M don't mind, because I've just cut a little snippet of text commenting on Collective Minds in March, when all this kind of initially sort of came about as a consequence of Sam McClure, and just hear what he's got to say on it.
Yeah, one quote here. This is from this journalist. I'm just repeating what he's written. Some players are still not in a good headspace after the training camp. How would you respond to that?
Well, personally, I'm great. I think it was one of the best camps I've ever been on.
Do you know of any
players? Speak for all of them, yeah.
Do you know of any other players that are mentally disturbed?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
It says you had to fill out a questionnaire that was mentally challenging.
Incorrect.
Didn't have to do that.
Incorrect.
Okay. This is run by a company called Collective Minds, is that right?
That's a company
it's called Mankind Project?
No, Collective Minds are the company that we're doing our mindfulness and meditation mental space with, that we've just signed up, which are, I think, a great business and group to be involved in.
I want to delve deeper.
So that was text on Triple M in March. Couple of interesting things for mine to come out of that. First of all, the denial of filling out the mentally challenging questionnaire didn't sound very convincing to me, and Dietmar didn't seem to buy it. And secondly was the reference to something called the Mankind Project. Now, Pete, am I right in saying that... No, it wasn't in your info, was it? Sam McClure. No. Sam McClure, when he originally broke this regarding the pre-season camp, also referred to the camp being called the Mankind Project. Now, do any of you guys know what the Mankind Project is?
Wouldn't have a clue.
I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it.
Donkey, do you know?
Helping a man define what his role is in life.
Yeah, it's a worldwide organisation, right? And it's men helping men. Now, there are no... Let me backtrack a little bit. A portion of this podcast has been deleted due to the inaccuracy of the content, and we apologise to those that have already listened to that section, and in particular references to an airport meeting with Collective Minds. There are other references to quotes made by Rory Sloane and Eddie Betts, and also Josh Jenkins. These quotes were drawn from the same article, which was found to be incorrect and likely a parody article. So we do apologise for that. But the remainder of the content, aside from those quotes, is drawn from public information, and we can only believe that it's accurate. Collective Mind, I've done a little bit of research on this, and I'm going to do some more, and we'll probably chuck something up on the AFL CrowCast website over the next 24 hours when I've just cross-checked a couple of things. But there doesn't appear to have been much, if any, board input or input from Fagan or Brett Burton or Don Pike regarding the engagement of Collective Minds. And there doesn't appear to have been a hell of a lot of due diligence done in relation to the appointment of Collective Minds.
I was just going to say, I'm on their webpage having a quick look right now. On their front slideshow, they've got a quote from Jordan Belfort, who, for those playing at home, was the actual Wolf of Wall Street that spent a fair bit of time in prison for not being very good. So that's bad.
There's a ton of information here, so I'm going to have to go through it a little bit step by step. But let's address the qualifications of the people that we've engaged to tinker with the minds of our elite sports people. Okay, so Eamon Wolf, his background is he started life as a marketing person. He got a Bachelor of Political Science, brackets International Relations, from the University of Queensland, and he followed that up with a Masters of Business, right? He's gone into his working life working for a couple of companies that no longer exist in marketing capacity. He then started up a startup business, a startup business that looked to take advantage of new media, in the mobile data space. So it was called One Village. It was back in 2006. Allegedly, and this is only his claims, and I've got a lot of this from the horse's mouth because I found a podcast that he appeared on not very long ago. They raised $130 million worth of capital in 2006, and shortly before the company was due to be launched in 2007, all the funding got pulled and the thing fell over. He then spent a bunch of time in marketing roles in digital roles with various companies. He's worked as an online marketing consultant. He's worked as a communications officer. He's worked as a digital media team leader. He's worked as a digital marketing coordinator. He's worked as a digital services manager with Queensland University of Tech, a web project manager with University of Tech in Queensland. He's worked as a web manager. He's very much into content management, web server technologies, basically he's in the digital marketing and social media content space. I'm reading this off his own CV, which interestingly, when you look at LinkedIn, doesn't appear. I've had to actually find that somewhere else. So, bottom line is that Eamon Wolf is not a qualified psychologist, has never been a qualified psychologist, and his offsider, who I'll find his name for you, Derek Letty, is also not a qualified psychologist, never has been a qualified psychologist. Derek Letty's background is he'd spent a lot of time with a company called Leading Edge, who were essentially a business intelligence company. Neither of those two people, the co-founders, who now label themselves as mind performance experts, have any psychology background whatsoever apart from reading a few books. Now, Sam McClure, when he questioned the head of sports psychology at the AIS, a bloke by the name of Jeff Bond, Jeff Bond has basically said, without casting aspersions on Wolf's character, he was worried that people without formal qualifications, I'm quoting from Sam's article here, thanks Sam, without formal qualifications as a psychologist who are very good at marketing themselves and making all sorts of claims were getting picked up by sporting organisations, including professional football clubs, without doing due diligence. They talk about mindfulness training and being mind coaches. In a sense, what they're doing is practicing psychology. Bond, who is still practicing privately as a sports psychologist, says there is no listing of Wolf or his right-hand man, Derek Letty, on the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency's Register of Practitioners. He's not a registered psychologist, and he certainly doesn't have an endorsement. Let me just read down a little bit. On a website called The Soul Space, which Wolf is listed as a facilitator, it says, under qualifications and training, it says Eamon is trained in a range of coaching, assessment and training approaches, including vertical mindset assessment and coaching, power stage assessment and coaching, and more. He integrates these coaching approaches with extensive experience in the leadership field and through a long time involvement with the national masculinity and men's work community. But Bond said, I've got no idea what any of that is, and I've been in the game for 40 years now. Okay. So before we get on to the statement of national masculinity and men's work community, let's just talk about the lack of qualifications for a moment. Because how can a professional sporting organisation like the Adelaide Football Club employ as sports psychologists people who have never trained in the field?
Well, lack of due diligence, obviously.
It's disgraceful.
Well, it's stunning. It's stunning, and there's a message there on the chat from Vardy Magic, and he just said how sad it is that we're in this situation this year when compared to last year we're 8-3 and flying, and yet 12 months later and a grand final loss later, here we are, and we've embarked upon this pre-season camp, and obviously there's been the conditioning issues as well, but this appears to have had a really, really damaging effect and repercussions that could be felt at the trade table.
Well, what we've had is both mental and physical. What's the word? Just messing up our whole squad.
Well, there's an inkling that I've received from listening to Wolf on one of his podcast appearances. They actually use some neural
linguistic programming.
Yeah, no. Neural tracking mechanisms, like some technology that is able to track brainwaves and stuff, right? And this technology is supposed to be able to measure a person's readiness for activity, their consciousness, and it talks about, let me just find it here. We're talking about the various 5 main brainwaves and their function, delta being the recovery stage, and theta being the creative intuition stage, and alpha being the calm single focus stage, which is where you want your athletes to be. And he actually talks about measuring individuals and being able to make an assessment about how ready they are for certain types of activity, and particularly athletes. None of this is based in scientific evidence.
What do they? Do they use like pretty crystals and run up beside them or something and wave some?
It's brainwave measurement. So they obviously stick monitors on people's heads. Now I don't know whether they've done that down at the Crows, but
you know what that sounds like? Scientology, when they make the people hold the little things and measure their activity. Sorry.
Okay. No. But okay, you've mentioned Scientology. Now the rest of this.
Oh, you tell me.
The rest of this is just a little bit of me joining dots together because I haven't been able to make confirmations. But Eamon Wolf, on his LinkedIn page, as well as being the co-founder of Collective Minds, is also a facilitator in a program called Powerhouse Programs, right? Now, Powerhouse Programs is a rite of passage program for teenage boys, okay? So it reads, and I'm reading straight from his LinkedIn page, Journey to Manhood is a 5-day rite of passage program for teenage sons and fathers that dives deeply into the real issues facing families with teenage boys today. This is a life-changing experience and one of the best things you could do for your boy at this critical time. Evidence-based outcomes for boys who have attended these programs include stronger father-son relationships, more confident communication and social skills, high level of respect for mothers and women, increased self-esteem. Okay. There's further links to bits of media associated with that. He's also a volunteer facilitator with a group called Men's Wellbeing. Now, Men's Wellbeing is a self-described men's self-help group, subtitled Men Supporting Men. And when you look at the structure of men's wellbeing, and if you look at the FAQ section of the Men's Wellbeing website, and then you make a comparison with a website on the Mankind Project, you find some striking similarities. Now, the Mankind Project has been one that has been around for a while, and is heavily invested in the remasculinization of men. They have this thing called the New Warrior Integration Weekend. They have the New Warrior Project. Hang on, I'm just trying to find my place here. So many bloody things open here, it's ridiculous. But essentially, there seems to me to be links between the philosophies and practices of Collective Minds, the use of rituals, the use of, tenuous psychological processes like blindfolding and breaking people, etc., etc., etc. and I will put some links up in the article that I end up writing about people's experiences with the Mankind Project. Suffice to say that if the club has allowed themselves to be roped in to what essentially amounts to a self-help program that has no empirical basis, then they all deserve to be fucking fired, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there's no argument about that. They should be.
A message on the chat from Moles, and sorry, I don't. G'day, we don't normally see you here, but just says no surprise. CM were at the club the same week. We got thrashed by 90 points. I didn't know that.
Oh, Collective Minds were behind the Power Ranger stance. That's fact.
Oh, you're fucking kidding me.
That's fact. So, and that's been reported, Donkey. But it's the underlying basis of this, and the lack of qualifications by the people that are running this, and the apparent lack of due diligence by the club. And of course, we're only going on what's been reported. So, we're obviously not privy to any or all of the due diligence that the club has actually conducted. But it seems to me that when you link in the practices that are well stated within the Collective Minds workshops, within associated men's-based warrior, quote-unquote, programs, when you dovetail that into news that there might be some unrest between partners and wives at the club, and when you then make a linkage to the lack of qualifications in the background of the people running this thing, the more I've delved into this, the more speechless I've become.
And certainly, it was interesting because none of us have obviously looked. No one's done any, and Sam McClure might be one, but no one's really looked into it to any great depth. And it was only the fact that this information lobbed this week that caused, I certainly know you, Fiend, to go in and have a look at it.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing.
Tex is quoted as saying, the camp that we went on as a footy club, personally, I found as one of the most beneficial and rewarding camps I've ever been on as an individual.
He likes beans.
But the fact of the matter is, prior to Eamon Wolf starting up Collective Minds, the bloke had some background in digital marketing and also and obviously developing teams within that space. But the epiphany that he had to start up Collective Minds was as a result of spending a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember quite how long, at the Burning Man Festival in America.
He's a fucking shyster.
At the Burning Man Festival in America. And by his own admission, participated fully in that festival, if people understand what the Burning Man Festival is.
I don't think you participate fully, but yeah.
Well,
not fully there.
Yeah, it's an oxymoron probably. The bottom line, and we've got to be careful. But this is all information that I've been able to gain over the last couple of days, and most instructive. And I will put all these links on the website over the next 24 hours if people can bear with me, including a bit of a summary of all of this. But when you get information like Pete got from a very, very trusted source that we've had very good information before, Pete, I 100% concur that of all the sources that we've had, I think this guy is the most...
or girl. Could be a girl.
Yeah, or this person is the most accurate in terms of predicting what's going on. When you dovetail that information and you do a bit of research and you actually delve down and look, this took me 48 hours. Why the hell didn't someone at the bloody club do this research? Because it's all freely available. That podcast that this guy was featured on, that's freely available, and I will put the link to that podcast on our website. But the simple fact is, these guys aren't qualified. These guys are not qualified.
Well, it's a thorough disgrace, absolute disgrace. It's just a further extension mentally of the physical disasters we've suffered.
And it's not hard to find. I mean, we're just, we're just average Joes that,
Yep.
we've got a whole different day life, and we just do this for a bit of fun.
Yep.
There's professional people out there, and this is all available.
Well, there's an entire department dedicated to the well-being of our players, and for the most part, it looks like they've buggered up their brains and they've buggered up their bodies over the last 12 months. Like, this is like some of the stuff you've just gone through and about the lack of qualifications. And if he's a digital marketing guy, his site's in fucking WordPress. Like it's all. It's unfathomable that we've put multi-million dollars worth of players into an environment where this could be their result.
Yeah.
Without proper people that look after their, well-being.
Yeah.
Unfathomable.
Now, Don Parker's come out and said that and I'm not quoting here, I'm paraphrasing, but he's very interested in this space. We've done all we can from a physical point of view and all that sort of stuff, and the mind is the next step. And I don't disagree with him. I think most clubs, Collective Minds, have worked at other clubs. I think they spent some time at Richmond a few years ago, and maybe St Kilda, I'm not sure. We've had leading teams bring their antiquated ideas through a bunch of clubs, including our own.
Yes.
But when you're actually dealing with sports psychology and you're actually dealing with the mental capacity of players, and you're entrusting your multi-million-dollar organisation to a couple of blokes who tag themselves as mind training experts but don't actually have not even a sniff of a psychology background. All they've done, and I'll be transparent here. All they've done, I've done things that are similar in my work life. I've done change management, and I've done organisational development, and I've done process improvement at the biggest company in Australia, right? There's no way I could step into a football club, and there's no way that people that I've worked with in a higher capacity that are well versed in change management and innovation and people development could step into a sports club and even have the fucking balls to try and manipulate that organisation. It is disgusting. It is disgusting, and heads need to roll about this, honestly.
Can't argue with that. It is a thorough disgrace. In fact, we've gone from being one of the better clubs last year over the off season, and then only through the off season to a shambles, both mentally and physically.
So Sid Crow asked on the chat, are we going to ask the club for a comment? I think we will, actually. I'm going to collate all the information that I've got. I'm going to write an article for the AFL CrowCast.com website. I've already put out a couple of feelers and requests for people to make comment. And I'll do the club the courtesy of making a comment.
I'd love you to do that.
Well, I think we owe it to the club, because I must stress that as much as we trust our sources, and a lot of the information that we've talked about tonight is just a collaboration of information that's available online, it is still, we're not in the inner sanctum of the Adelaide Crows. So I would love to see or get an understanding from Andrew Fagan and Brett Burton and Mark Rasciuto and even Tex Walker on the due diligence that they conducted on this organisation, Collective Minds, before they engaged them and put the group through the ritualised and initiation-style boot camp that they went through at the Gold Coast that seems to have splintered the group. And, nobody's blaming this program for the malaise that we're in this season. Obviously, we've had a terrible run with injuries, and that's probably a separate discussion to some degree, and we've talked about Kangatech in the past. But if you look at it, we've employed Kangatech, which stems from North Melbourne, and what's his name, Saunders from North Melbourne, and a program that he's developed for commercial gain. And then we've employed Collective Minds, which is put together by a couple of guys who have some background in people development but no psychology training or qualifications. It just seems like we've gone pretty fucking hard on some pretty out there strategies, and it seems a knee-jerk reaction to losing a grand final and a hell of a risk to take with such a huge, like we're talking about 10 million in salaries. They're entrusting these people with a $10 million asset, and that's our playing group. So I don't know where we go from here, but you guys can discuss a bit more, or we can just leave it there. But I will put up on Twitter and Facebook when I've posted the article on AFL CrowCast.
To be honest, mate, outstanding research, and I congratulate you for that, because it's all there. It's nothing, as you say, that's just all public information that anybody could look up. So there's nothing. There's no sort of secrets, or there's nothing alleged sort of about that. So well done with that. But I suspect we probably should leave it there. And if you're going to do, I think if you're going to put something up on the website, that'd be great. And also obviously ask for a comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're absolutely entitled to. I'm sure that we won't, get much. But
well, you never know. You never know.
But I don't think I certainly don't think they're going to come out to a little tin pot backyard outfit like ours and give us anything in particular. But I think that we have to do them the courtesy, as you say, of at least putting it to them.
Well, I guess I put a line under the discussion by saying that we've always had a very good relationship with the club. Andrew Fagan and Ian Shuttleworth have been very forthcoming. Ryan Smith down there has helped us out with player interviews in the past. The CrowCast, we're a bunch of blokes that love the Adelaide Football Club. The people that listen to the CrowCast love the Adelaide Football Club. And the last thing that we want to do is pour shit over the club. But we're also professional people. We've all got professional jobs. We also have professional and personal life experience. We're not all 18-year-old dickheads chugging beers on the hill at Adelaide Oval. We're a bunch of decent, honest, smart people, and I think the club probably needs to address the things that we've raised, and we will give them the opportunity to do so, and hopefully they will continue to see us as an honest, club-loving, Crows-loving group, but if not, so be it.
I would say there's a message from Sid Crow saying Vic Media would surely run with this. Well, they did. Sam McClure was on this
correct
very early in the piece, and
29th of March.
Yep, so you can look that one up, but didn't get much.
Yep, no, it seemed to be shut down. So I don't know. There seems to be a reticence by the media at this stage to run with it, but I'm pretty pissed off about it. From a personal point of view, and I think most of the supporters that are listening here would be pretty pissed off about it. And we're going to see it through, Pete. As much information as I can glean about this, we're going to see it through. So we'll stay tuned, and we'll let people know via the various outlets as we get comment from the club or other people, or we chuck something up.
All right. Should we move along?
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got a baseball team. Do you guys feel that?
Well,
actually, that. Oh, funny enough, at least it gave you an opportunity to eat your chips while I was talking, donkey.
All right.
So anyway, thanks for that intro, Macca.
Yeah. Thanks, Macca. Let's talk some footy, shall we? Apparently, there's a couple of games on.
A quick word about Sunday. I was at the game. I felt like I'd been transported back in time to Sanderson days, where we we win the inside 50 count, but we just keep kicking the ball up against a brick wall. It's like playing football squash, and of course the ball just rebounds off the wall and bounces back for easy goals. So, and I can always remember Brenton Sanderson always saying, "Oh, we won the inside 50 count." That it took me back to those days, and all of that really good system that we normally see was disappeared in a really horrid transitional game where we just couldn't get any kind of decent system going into our forward 50, and really, really, really can't express to you disappointment in seeing Wayne Miller line up in the forward line when he'd been so good across half back, and we really could have used his ball movement, ball delivery coming through the centre. I think we really lacked in that area, and it wasn't until they eventually squeezed Dave McKay out of that position and put him back there. But the game was, I think that the story of the game was written sort of in the first half, and it was all a bit late. So anyway, that's just my quick observation.
Two great points you made there, Pete, and you were absolutely spot on. Firstly, dealing with the Miller one. Well, I mean, that's just madness. I mean, the guy has finally found his niche and starting to really build up his confidence and dish the ball in beautifully into the forward lines because he's one of the elite kickers when he's really on. But coming back to the forward line, what a fucking mishmash of nothing that was. You said we won the inside 50s. We were talking about leadership. There was no leadership in that forward line at all. And I know we didn't have the people in there, the normal people, but there was not even a hint of anybody controlling the situation. That there was no game plan there at all. It was just a mishmash of nothing. And very, very disappointing that although we had heads there, there was nobody there that could really think a way to do it. And I can see also comments about the lack of speed. Well, we are a very slow side, and we do need some fast legs into the side. But and also that would as you said, the inside 50s just a waste of time. No scoring, and Miller. Well, that's ridiculous. Put him in the forward line. I thought, but no leadership on the ground. I couldn't see any leadership at all.
Anyone?
I've had my say, mate. I'm
Donkey.
That quick say, and then we'll push on to next week.
Sorry, I'm just a bit spaced out from the last bit.
You eat your bloody chips, you mean?
No. Look, I'm actually off the chips. Donkey had a bit too much enjoyment over his holiday, so I've been put out to pasture. I'm on steamed oats and looking at water for breakfast. So, look, I agree with the leadership thing. I just don't think Tommy Lynch is a good lieutenant, but I don't think he needs the 3 stars on his general badge.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And he's just. And I don't know if it's anything related to the what we just spoke about for the last half an hour, but I just don't feel he just doesn't look like he's been there all season. Whether it's been the flu or whatever, I just don't feel like he snapped himself on the game like he has done in the past. And I felt that at the start of last year as well. And then he got going. And I just hope that he finds a bit of touch after his they sew his side back together. So I think that might be part of our transition problems, I think, going to the forward 50.
I reckon maybe given the time allotted to the other stuff, we have a look at the game this week. We've got obviously Fremantle away. The good news being, of course, Nat Fyfe not available, and that's there's no bigger there's few bigger outs than that in AFL football, to be honest. So that's a really, really a good thing for us. But obviously on the other side, we've got significant doubts. It looks like it's fairly certain Tom Lynch won't play, and Richard Douglas obviously doubtful, and we've got Rory Laird now doubtful with a fractured hand. So few difficulties there in terms of who we've got to come in. I assume they'll recall Gallucci potentially. And then, I don't know, we talked earlier in the show about whether Ben Davis might be a potential call-up. We really are getting down towards the lower end of the list. But Andy Otten is probably in line for a call-up with his, to get some experience back into the side. So, I don't know. They're the kind of names that I think would be in the mix.
Yeah, I agree with you. But all I can say, if you're not getting a game with Adelaide at the moment, you really would have to wonder where the hell you sit in the club, because just about everybody else has had a go. But the guys you're talking about there, Colucci, I would never have dropped him in the first place because I know he didn't get a lot of the ball the week before. I think he only had about 7 possessions or something like that. But everything he did was done very, very at high speed, and also he looked classy when he did it. And he's going to be a good player for us, and I think he should be. He does put some speed into the side, and I would play him all the time. Davis apparently is fairly quick too, isn't he?
Oh, look, I've only seen him a couple of times, and I'm so impressed with him. I reckon he's just such a talent. He's about 187, 188. He's a medium-sized forward, but he plays tall and just marks the ball magnificently above his head. And will take. You can write it down that he'll take the mark of the year at some point. He just takes hangers everywhere, and a lot of talent. Nice kick for goal. I see DSG just saying there that it could be a wet game on Sunday. It's supposed to be a bit wet. That might impact upon a kid like Davis who needs to be able to mark the ball overhead. But I would love to see him get a role.
I know that the media is saying that we're facing a very difficult game over there in Fremantle, and from my point of view, even with the players that we've got out, I heard the Fremantle coach saying that, I can't remember the exact number, but I think he said something like about 8 or 9 players they've got that played less than 10 games in their side. So it would be very disappointing if we went over there and couldn't win the game, in my opinion.
Well, I think I think a Greenmaker game, and regardless of all the hoo-ha that's going on, I think that as long as we can put our minds focus on this, it's critically, in terms of the season, it's a critically important game. And if we get to 6-6, we're just with the run home that we've got, we're just about cooked. If we can push it out to 7-5 and then maybe even 8-5 by the break, then the season's still alive. But it starts on Sunday, and they've just it's a critical game. I think they can win it though.
Yeah, I think we should win it. I think Macca's point is very salient about how the youth they've got. They're playing terrible football. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch much of it, but they're playing really terrible football. I don't see too much threat. I think we're actually, for all the problems we've had in terms of injuries to our list and how collective our minds have been, I think we're actually, apart from the Melbourne game, we've actually been putting up some pretty decent fights. So I think our actual football is going as good as it could be under the circumstances. So I think we should take care of them.
They are a young side, and I think it's there's a great opportunity to really beat them up on the inside with Cam and Huey and Bryce Gibbs in there. I think it's a really good opportunity to beat them up inside with some heavy bodies, and just get it going our way enough that that we can sneak over the line. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but I would be very, very. I mean, we're always disappointed if we lose, but against this current Fremantle side, even over in Perth, I would be disappointed, and without Fife.
Yeah, and Sandlands is out too, isn't he?
Oh, is Sandy out as well, is he?
Well, I thought he didn't play. He didn't play last week.
I didn't realise Sandy would be out as well. Well, that's so. I mean, you've just got to pick up a win here.
Yeah, I'd be really worried if we didn't win this game, but that means we would have hit rock bottom if we lose to Freo, because this Freo, as Donkey said, they're not a good side, and they're not playing very good football. They don't have a lot of depth. They're playing a lot of kids, and they're obviously preparing for get a nice draft pick and start rebuilding for the future. And if we can't beat them, well, we're not in very good position.
Running through the other games, Port and Richmond on Friday night. That promises to be probably the best Friday night game we've had for a while.
Yeah.
Who are we tipping?
I'll go Richmond. I'll go Richmond. Port. I think Port have got. They're a very good side. They're very intense, but their skill level is very low, I reckon.
Don?
I think Port in this one too.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with Richmond because they're in such good form, but they do not play Adelaide Oval particularly well. And actually, it was interesting hearing Damien Hardwick today say that the Adelaide Oval presents different challenges for them. So, and I think it's going to be pretty wet and heavy conditions. So, I just think that with the ball on the ground, I think that the Richmond Smalls might just have it. Geelong play North down at Kardinia Park.
Because Kardinia Park, or whatever
the hell they call it.
The alphabet, just a heap of letters, isn't it? No, look, I'll go North Melbourne.
Yeah, I agree with you. Big Macca. I just think that North Melbourne are rolling very hot at the moment, and I think the Cats are probably not where they want to be, and I think that might just cause a little bit of a win away from home, which would be good.
I have a very simple, one of my very, very simple tipping policies is never ever tip against Geelong at home, so I will stay with the Cats. GWS will pulverise the Suns at Spotless.
Oh, they will. They will, yes. You can only go one way there.
Sydney and St Kilda at Etihad.
Just before we get to Sydney and St Kilda, there's been a few people mentioning to me that the Raw article that I quoted a couple of things from was a parody article, which may or may not be true. But that was only a very, 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 very tiny aspect of what was said, and Andrew Fagan has actually been quoted as saying that there was some confusion about the camp and the board actually weren't consulted. So if that Raw article was a parody and a couple of those quotes that I put forward were a bit of fun, my mistake. But nonetheless, there's about 1,000 other articles and 1,000 other pieces of information that are completely accurate. And I spent about an hour listening to podcasts this afternoon where Eamon was talking personally. So, ignore that bit if it wasn't right. I don't know whether it was right or not, but the rest of it certainly is.
Saints and Sydney, I'd reckon Sydney will get this one.
Yeah, Saints are playing better footy, but not quite there yet against the Swannies.
Yeah, they had a few good minutes against West Coast in the last quarter, but I think West Coast, had eased off a little bit too quickly, but I can't see them beating Sydney.
Brisbane and Essendon up at the Gabba. That might be an interesting game, that one.
Oh, they're very ordinary, Brisbane. Very well.
I'm going to stick with Brizzy up there.
I'm going the Lions. I think they've been playing pretty decent footy. They showed a bit of heart and they don't give up, which I really like. North Melbourne blew them away, but North Melbourne are really good. But they didn't give up last week and they kept punching through. I think they're going to claim a few more scalps than definitely Carlton. Probably even a few more scalps than Fremantle in the end, I reckon.
I think you're right. I mean, they do have a crack, but they're not the most talented list.
No, and maybe with Charlie Cameron out, maybe I'm a bit too boyish.
I'll stick with Brisbane. We've been through Adelaide. The big game of the week is Melbourne and Collingwood. Interesting one.
And played at
the G.
At the G. Well, that's a home ground for both, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That is a tough game, that one. I just think Collingwood might do it. They've been playing very good football.
Some idiot on here tipped them to make the 8. That was very, very bizarre. But I think Collingwood will do them. I think that this might be the end of Melbourne's run just for this week.
No, I think I might have their boots started sitting in my brain, but I think Melbourne are hot to trot and they're going to just keep rolling on through. They're going to steamroll them.
Ian, you back with us?
Yep. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Tip's done. Tip's done. What do you want to finish up with?
Tip's done. Let's move on to I don't know, competitions, Donkey. Let's do that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you weren't here last week, mate.
It doesn't matter. We can still review some other games from weeks gone by. And just want to put out there to the people on the cast, I have offered Phoenix some advice and help for anything he wants with the Dream Team, and I will continue to provide that offer of support for him throughout the rest of the competition and the rest of the year. But we'll start off with the tipping, I think. J-Mac is still out loud and proud in front. He took away eight tips right last week, which is a pretty decent effort, and he's on a total of 70. The Cellar Dwellers, or the Q's Cellar Dwellers, also 8 and 69. B Short, 8 last week and 68. Dominic, a bit disappointing for him, only as a 7, got 67. Quite a lot of 8s last week. I managed to pull off an 8 myself. Simon from the chat looks like he pulled off an 8 as well. We are tied on 63. Phoenix managed to only get 4 that round. How'd you do it, Phoen? How'd you only get 4?
By not putting my tips in.
This is your comeback week, mate. And Peter J on 7, and 6 behind me there at 7. So that's where we are with the tipping. Of course, Macca has refused to play with us all, so I just do my weekly public shaming of him for not joining the competition.
I am in other competition for money, mate.
Yeah, that's great. Tell your story, Walker, pal. You get your roast here. When we move over to the Dream Team, a lot of people have been messaging me privately over the last couple of weeks. They want to know how exactly the Donkeys Dreamboats took apart the Big Crow Bangers. And look, we went off. We did a couple of things in the preseason. We had a special mind training camp, and we managed to roll over the Big Crows Bangers by about 400. That still only leaves me in about 9th spot. So there's a lot of other better players in the league than me this year. We've got Sweet. I'll just go through last week's results just quickly. The Dreamboats managed to get 2 wins on the trot, which is us storming home. We knocked off Habanero Hot Sauce. Sweet managed to defeat Big Crow's Bangers. That's like beating up an 8-year-old at karate class. Dylan FCC knocked off Barachos. Mick Spuds took care. Mick Spuds went down to the Could-Have-Beens on a massive 2400. The Winter March 24-4-3, biggest score of the round, which is Peanut from the board. Took care of Skid Kids. Corey took out Pete's Pirates. DIY Bane Surgery went down to Azza. Monkey Slappers went down to Sanders. It was clanking some wins and coming home pretty strong in the end. And Newbie Kimber took care of Ryan Shuey, who I don't think he's managed his team for about 8 weeks, and he's still only about 50 points behind Big Crow's Bangers. So that's where we are with the competitions. We'll just do the ladder really quickly. Just do the top 4. There we go. We've got Wheat in first. Dylan FCC in second on 32 points behind 36. Peanut on 28 points and Corey on 28. Pretty even down at the bottom. 4 wins gets you in the 8 at this point. Donkeys is out on percentage, which is, I know who everyone's wanting to hear how they're going. Should be a decent end to the back half of the season.
That's just about the end of my leave pass having expired.
You've done well, Pete. You've done well. Let's move on to Game of Crows. What did we even do last week? What was it again?
Turnovers.
Turnovers, that's right. In a second, let me just bring it up. Turnovers. Who was our turnover kings last week? We had Rory Laird, 9. Rory Laird wins whether it's a positive stat or a negative stat, to be honest. 9 for Rory, so anyone that picked Rory Laird gets 3 points. Tom Dede with 8. So anyone that picked the Dude gets 2 points. And then a series on 5, Gibbs, Atkins, Matt Crouch and Darcy Fogarty on 5 turnovers each. So if you picked any of those 4 players, then you get 1 point. What are we going to go for this week? Bloody hell, hey? Let's go for effective disposals, shall we? Effective disposals. So,
Sounds good.
as a guide, Gibbsy had 24 last week, Crouch 23, Laird 22, and then it fell away rather quickly. Gibson and Greenwood on 14.
I'll go the Dude for that. He's pretty good for effective disposals.
So who was that?
Tom
Dude.
Day.
No, I'll go with Gibbs.
Donk.
Yeah, I'm going to go Gibbsy as well. I don't think the ball's going to get in our back half, so Dude won't see it all day.
Yeah, I'll stick with Matty Crouch, I think, second game back from a spell. So, yep, make sure you get your Gamer Crows selections in on Twitter or Big Footy or the Facebook page, AFL CrowCast. And that's Gamer Crows for this week. Macca, have a crack, mate.
Oh, yes, I am a grumpy old man. That's what I am. I really don't care who knows it.
Okay, well, the first thing I'll do with the sweets, and we'll do that in record time because I couldn't think of one fucking thing that was sweet. So we'll go straight into the smacks. And the first one I'd like to give is to Rance. I don't know whether anybody saw that great big swan dive that always referred to as the champion defender did it. That was disgusting, and he got fined $1,000 for it. And another smack to Hardwick for trying to defend it on TV. Because Corn said he thought he should. Kane Corn said he thought that Rance should be sanctioned, not fined, and he's scarring up his legacy. And Wayne Carey said a similar thing, that he put a stain on his career by doing that. And unfortunately, I think, in my opinion, Hardwick should have said nothing, but he carried on about it. And as Jason McKay said, Olympic diver. It was. I have never seen on an AFL football field a bloke dive that far, and it just looked ridiculous. I mean, we all don't like that in soccer. It's one of the things we criticise it for. And I'm not saying that players don't continuously exaggerate the situation, but what Rance did was over the top. So big smack to him. And well, if I started on the club and started smacking them, I'd never stop, mate. So I'll just leave it that there's you've summed it and been talking about it. There's quite a few individuals there that should get a great big clout out there and then boot up the arse and kicked out the door. And that's me done.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again that the references to the Raw article were just passing references, and the crux of the whole matter is the qualifications of the people running the show in this particular program, and the lack of any sort of background in either sports science or psychology in general, sports psychology or psychology in general.
And don't forget, Sam Clue had a crack at it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post a couple of things on the thread in Big Footy just to reinforce what we've been talking about tonight. As I said earlier, we will put questions to the club around due diligence and et cetera, and I hope that we've been able to give people a balanced, if not depressing, view of what's been going on down there.
So fucked.
Pete, thanks for sticking around tonight, mate. I know
No, that's
you
it.
got a bit of a hall past.
I've got a bail, so I'll catch you guys later.
Donkey and Macca, thanks very much, guys.
No worries. Good to be with you.
Thanks to everyone on the chat for joining us. Don't forget to keep an eye out for things on the various outlets, and we'll see you on Sunday for the wrap show. Night, everyone.
Yeah, good night all.
Night.